good afternoon. Welcome back to the Trail of the Green Man. Today we are going to take a look at the database that has been slowly, painfully being created over a vast number of years with the help of multiple people. And it is very close to being ready for public use. So I thought I would take us a little spin around the database and people can get an idea of what kind of information is going to be available. So what we have is basically, this is going to be different logins, obviously, and I'm dealing with the admin login just now. And it gives a lot more options, whether it's just to add data or edit it, combine it so that the database can function correctly. But mainly for users, it will all be on this left-hand side, listing the data or allowing it to combine some data in order to extract some results. And we also have a very functioning spreadsheet that allow you to actually, how can I put this? The spreadsheet allows for a manipulation of broader data. The database allows us to see this data visually, which is very helpful. And what we have here is basically the list of all the authors. See, we've got quite an extensive list here. Some days it just seems like it's endless. And I think we've got a total of 602. If we go back, we can have a look at, I'll go for the list all carvings. So the carving is the Green Man. And here we will have like every publication, and here we will be able to have a look at the exact Green Man. Now this is a terrible example. This is from Igbo. Some of the quality from the early English books online is not the best, as you can see. So we will take another one. Here we have an example also, and we are basically able to take a look at every single in list format. You can see some of them are terrible, but it's still enough to allow to give us an idea of what we're looking at. So we can break it down like that. We can come back to that later. We can list all the locations. London, Oxford, Zerbst, Helmstedt, Amsterdam, Hanover, Manchester. 52 different locations. We have list all the pages. So from the books again, we can tell you exactly what page the Green Man is from, and we can have a look and we can see exactly what the page was like. We can do this for everything, basically. So we have the Green Man, we have the page, we know what page number they're all on. This is just information that helps us. We also have the publication files for whenever the website is actually down. We can help a PDF of the file or the publication for every Green Man. A lot of the times the websites are actually down or the file is moved, and this was just something that is for administration or not public, how can I put it, distribution basically. It's just for the database pretty much, and there's 520 of those. We can list all the printers, which is quite important. We need to know all the printers. We have 182 different printers. and we'll list all the publications which we've seen to date. Here we have every publication, and we can basically click it and it will take us to the information page. It'll give us a description, another link to the full page, another link to the carving. Here we'll have the actual link to the website where you can actually get more information on this. But we have the location, the authors, the printers, the publishers, as much information as we can get for each one. Let's close this down here, because we can have like a view of details of one publication. So we can come through and we can pick each publication and it will bring us back to here, and we can see how many green men were in the book. Here we have 2. Digital copy, it's on page 5 and page 45. And here are the 2 block A's. Helpful information. But what it basically does, it allows us to take all this information and we can categorize these blocks by giving them various letters. So if I was to come and see back to, let's see, list all carvings, you can see we have block C, A's, G's, H's, block M's. They're all a green man with 2 rings. Block K looks very familiar, but it's not the same as block A. Block G. And this is how we are able to basically collect all of these green men with 2 rings and break them into individual block letters. But with those block letters, we can then separate them further. We have 858 individual blocks. Now we can then take that and we can look at the block damage. So if we take an example of, let's say, block C, we can look here and it's bin C1A. Now, what bin is basically the first 4 letters of the original printer who used that block. Like this, Dancy, this is John Danter, who was the first person to use this block that we have found so far. This would be Dant block G. So they are copies of a block G, but they're not identical copies, which allows us to basically break it down and then assign damage or differences, because here we can see 3 rounded large space bars, wing top right. So if we look here, 3 rounded large space bars, wing top right. Wing top right with 3 bars spaced, which is different from another block. There is ways that which you can tell that they are not the same block. They may be closely copied from one. Like this is the Miley G1, and it will have a flat curve, a face, curve flat, right side, single line bar, top left end, straight curve end, and this allows us to basically find the difference between various different green men that are clearly copies of blocks, and some of the differences are quite blatant once you know what you're looking for. So we were able to basically break it down into block letters first, and then we were able to give them like a prefix, Miley for Milyander, or as we just had Hune G, that's Hunefield. And it's block, as you can see, it looks just like the block G. This is a bad copy, obviously, the quality is quite low, but it shares the similar traits as Miley block G that we've just seen, but it's clearly not the same. So instead of this being Miley G, this is Hyun G for Hyunfield. And this has allowed us to basically break it down further and further, so we can actually trace when these blocks started, when they ended their life, when they were transferred to other printers, and it allows us to do another level of research that has not really been available until this database was put together. So to allow us to help to see this, we can take all of this information and we can filter it out. So let's say I want to take a look at all block Gs. I'll keep it very simple. So if we look here, we have a Berge block G. Now this Berge block G is not the same as others. But if we look Berge block G, we can clearly see it's got 3 bars in the top right. And it's curved here. 3 bars, top right, and curved. 3 bars, and a curve. These are all Berge G. So if I keep coming down until I find another block G that is not Berge, let's see how far we need to go before Miley G. We don't have 3 bars at the top, like 1, 2, 3, and a curve. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and straight. So although they look very similar to each other, the Bergeron block G and the Miley block G, they are indeed different. They are, I don't want to say copies as in it's a pirate copy or something like that. It's clearly a design that's been seen, copied, repeated, and we are able to basically find these differences and break them down so we're easy to understand the differences between them. But we can take that further and say, okay, we would like to see Miley block G. So if I come here and I just go for Miley G. Oh, or a second. And we hit the filters. Now what we will see is all Miley G. Miley G. Miley G. And of course we've got the information here, where it was printed, what is the date, the name of the publication, and we can scroll down all of these here. See, there is quite a lot of Miley G. As you can see, there is a lot. It just never ends, basically. We've got so many examples that we have managed to track down. And what we've done though, we've not just stopped there. So what we have done is we can separate these by printer, by author, by publisher, and we can really get a closer look. So if I come to here, close that, we can actually compare one selection to another. Because let me just show. So if I go to, let's say, Miley G. Where are we? Miley G. And on the right hand side, I'm going to take a look and we will see Miley G, Miley GB, Miley GC, Miley GA. We are able to take these further. Now if we look here, these Miley blocks are the same. We've got the same 4, 4, and straight. The little line here for the face marking, or whatever mark in the face, whatever name you like to give it. And we can kind of break it down further, because everything here in Miley GA, there is something that everything in Miley GA shares that is not in Miley G. And if you look closely enough, something will become quite apparent. You need to look quite close. Now, to help us do that, I'm going to give you a little example. Now here, what we've just been looking at, we have got mileage. Now everything from 1579, I'm going to look at mileage A at the top here. And mileage A ran from 1581 to 1599, and there would be multiple examples of this. But if we look, we can see that there is a line missing here. And there is a, I would like to say, missed ink or chip here. And then in 1599, 18 years later or something, we still have the missing line and we still have the chip. So we are able to break that mileage down to a mileage A. Now below here we have mileage B, which ran from 1596 to 1610. And if you look closely, you'll see that 1599 and 1596, this one comes before that. And this one has its tongue missing. But these do not have the tongue missing. Now, if we take a kind of closer look, that chip is not there, and that line is not there either. And this runs up to 1610. So, straight away, we need to ask ourselves a question. Are these indeed the same block? Because how can that be? How is that chip there and that line missing for all those years? But in 1596, they're present. So, if we come and take a closer look at this one here, I've just chosen this one because of the resolution. To understand a Miley block, what we're going to look for is telltale signs. Now, it was all very well me saying 1, 2, 3, 4, but if we look closely, this one is not a tab, it's just a single line. And on the other side, it's just a single line and just a single line. So if I come back over to the very first one, it's just a single line. And there are the two single lines again. They're not full tabs. But there's more. And this is the most important part. If we look very closely here, what we can see is the ink is bleeding from the line into the tab. And in this sharp corner here, the corner is bleeding of ink or pulling of ink into the tab. And on the left hand side, at the same corner, we see the same result. Now what this is, I don't want to say damage, but a forensic marker on the block showing where the ink would pull. Now blocks can be sanded down to get rid of blemishes or marks and then recut, making the cuts deeper, giving it a new lease of life. But here, this has not been done. If that was done, we would lose these bleed marks. And these bleeding or ink pooling is going to help us identify mileage, because when we come back to the original, the very earliest example of it, we can still see the same pooling marks from when the block was first created. And if we come back up to the G1 and we look closely, the pooling mark is still there, the pooling is still there, and on the other side, the pooling or the ink pooling is still there, meaning that in those years there has been no restoration of the block. It's still being used as is. So we now know that it's the same block. So why is this missed ink here and this little bit of damage or missed ink not showing here, because it was present in 1581 all the way up to 1599, you would expect to see it in 1596. So what that means is there must have been prints taken onto blank sheets. I've heard these being called sheet cancels, and then sold separately. Hundreds of them. Sold at book fairs or dispersed between other printers or kept as stock. But we're going to be looking at multiple centuries here. Well, decades. 1581 to 1610, it's nearly 30 years when people must have been keeping sheets or blocks. Now that makes you think, why is the tongue missing here? These actually belong to Tycho Brahe and Miley G1C from 1627, which, if you look, it's 46 years later from Miley GA. He has got his tongue, but he has decided to leave off the top bloom. It's got no crown. Now, between Kepler, this is Kepler's here, GC, and Brahe, there's another story to be told there, but that can come at a later time. But if we look closely, it's the single line, and the ink bleeds into there. The ink bleeds at the corner. Come to the left, it's still got the two single lines, and the ink bleeds into the corner. Ink pooling. So it's still the same block, many, many years later. But again, the ink is not missing here, and there is no chip there. The same as Miley GA. So again, this must be sheets that was taken from a separate print run back when the block was still good, and a deliberate choice to leave off the top bloom, just like the deliberate choice to leave out the tongue. Somebody keeping their mouth closed about a crown. So this is where perhaps we can start looking more into people who use these blocks and what kind of story do they have themselves. But if we carry on, we can see, if we take a look here, Miley G1, this is not the same missed line as the one at the top. If we have a look here, it's a double miss, and if you look at the top, it's not in the same area. It's slightly lower. The other ones is here, missed and missed. So what we've got is another print run, and if we look closely, we can see that we have a missed ink here and a missed ink there. And from 1580 to 1612, we have the line missed through there, and the ink missed in the same place, and at the top of the ring, sharing the same characteristics of missed ink through 32 years. So now we're beginning to build up what looks like separate print runs, all done at the same time, because there is only one time when the damage is visible that progresses to a next step. We will not find this double line missing and this ink missing any further forward than 1612. Until a new book is found, of course. 1627, we will not find this with the top bloom. We will not find this one with the missing tongue. And this here we will not find with the missing ink and the little chip out the corner. So what we can do is say that this is the start of its life to its end of its life, and we do not see it again in later times. Now there is a lot more Miley G blocks that require us to actually go and group more damage or more missed inks. It is quite a task, and we're always looking for help, and we hope some researchers who have a specific interest in a specific printer or a specific date will help do this. Now, this one is quite unique because we can trace it with a particular identifiable mark and then an additional identifiable mark on top of the first identifiable mark. So in 1598, it doesn't have the missed line, it doesn't have the chip, which it should be there. And what is strange is these have a crack all the way through it. From 1598 all the way here to 1602, you can clearly see this crack that runs straight through the block. And this is first identified in 1598. But in 1627, in 1612, 1596, 1581, well, up to 1599 and up to 1610, we do not see this crack. So that further reinforces the point that these must have been separate print runs of the same block. But if we look here, we can see not just this crack line, we can also see a missing chip on the left bloom, a missing chip on the left bloom, a missing here on the right and under, on the right and under. And if you look closely, we have an ink smudge here, ink smudge here, ink smudge to the right of the crack, ink smudge to the right of the crack, ink smudge to the left loop, ink smudge to the left loop, an ink smudge inside the ring, an ink smudge inside the ring, a pooling here on the bottom left, and a pooling here on the bottom left. And these run for 3 years. So we know these are the same block. But if we look closely again, from 1609, we see the block again, and it has the same thing. It's got the missed chip here, it's got the crack through it, it's got the smudge in the head, the smudge on the right, smudge on the left, the smudge in the ring, and the smudge on the bottom loop. So no doubt it's the same block with these very individual characteristics. You see the little chip on the left here, and we can still see the little chip there on the left. And this is still a Miley block because if we look closely, it's the single line and it bleeds. And it bleeds here. And it bleeds here. And it's 1616. This one's a bit unclear, but it's single, it bleeds, and it bleeds here. This one, you can see the cut mark going into it. It hasn't pulled in the ink, but you can see how the cut actually has been causing the bleeding. You can actually see the cut go right across here and into that bar or tab. Hence we've had all this pulling in the other copies. So we know that there's still the original Miley, still this original one. It doesn't carry these damage we've seen here, the little line through. But if we look closely, there is something additional here that's not on the earlier ones. If we look down here on the right, you can see like an oblong shape with ink missing. How it comes into here and ink missing there. And if we take a look to the right, we see the same ink missing through, ink missing there. There is a smudge mark here and here, and that runs from 1609 to 1616, and we have about 5 or 6 versions of this. So we can say it's a Miley block, we can call it a block G, we can call it a block G, then we can call it a mileage G, and then we can trace its past lives as a mileage G1, a mileage G2, and then we can say more than that, this is G2, but it's now being used by another printer, and it has this additional damage or additional mark that was not present in the older one. Now this is Hans Rudolf Wassenbach that used this version, and this one was passed on to a Christopher Kraus. Now the reason this is so important for me is because if we look here, this is Adam Hasselmayer's answer to the farmer, which was printed in 1612. This is the same answer to the farmer that was printed with the farmer at the same time. If we look closely, what we can see is, we can see the crack, we can see the mark here, we can see the mark in the head, we can see the mark in the ring, we can see the mark in the left, we can see the spludge on the bottom left, and we can still see this identifying mist ink oblong shape here. And this answer to the farmer is believed to be printed in a secret printing press under the behest of Prince Augustus. And there is a whole story and research built up around this. But what we can now do is say, hold up a minute. Is it possible that the answers or the best theory we have at the moment does not fit? Because we can say that, or we can at least speculate with some forensic evidence that these is the exact same Green Man used between 1609 and 1616 at a printing press or a second printing house from Christopher Kraus, which is, I'm going to say about depending where, maybe 100 kilometres from Tyrol, where Adam Hasselmayer frequented or is believed lived. So, do we go with the previous research, or can we provide enough proof that would allow us to revisit this question and take the research further and say perhaps there is more to this story, and the other parts of the story of the printing, perhaps we could revisit them as well. Now, I'm happy for any researcher to come along and help build this bigger picture. There is a paper being written now on this, but it doesn't go outside the remit of just proving the forensic steps. Nothing about the history, the characters involved, and I'm really hoping that at some point we do have somebody that is willing to come along, and it's collaborative, and I think it would be beneficial if we can start looking at what we can at least some way prove that what we believe so far might need some adjustment. Now we can come back to here, because now you understand that, we can now see all the mileages. Then the mileage is, which I showed you had the line in the chip, the line in the chip, the line in the chip. And I can, let's go for mileage E1. And what we can see here, it's got the double line and the ink missing, and the ink missing. Got the double line, ink missing, the double line, ink missing, double line, ink missing, and we can just slowly build that up. Mileage G1, and then we can go to mileage G2, and on the right hand side we'll see all the G2s, which is the one with the cracks. crack, crack, cracked, cracked, cracked. So we have multiple examples. We have quite a large data set, and then we can go one step further and go for Miley G2, where are we at here? Miley G2A. Then we can still see the crack, but we can then see this oblong shape that's mist ink. Crack, mist ink. The crack, the mist ink. Crack, the mist ink. Crack, mist ink. Crack, mist ink. See, so we have got a rather large, you can see there's still a mist ink there. Mist ink. Mist ink. And these are all basically from Christopher Klaus. And going by what we've seen before, it's not very... It depends what block we're looking at. If Christopher Klaus had this block, and it appears in the answer or the answer to the farmer, either, just like the Miley G, sheets were made after Hans Wassenbach used it. Sheets were made, and in that print run, those sheets were then handed off to somebody who went away to a printing press and secretly printed the answer to the farmer. Or the block was then handed to somebody else, and it was used anonymously for the printing of the Antwort, or the answer to the farmer. Or, from what we see here, the other possible answer was that Christopher Klaus printed it at his print house in Kempton. So we do have a choice, and we see it's 1612, and at the very same year, 1612, we know it was getting used by Christopher Klaus in Kempton by a man called Antonio Albizzi. And Antonio Albizzi is from a massively rich family, possibly on par with the Medici family. So there is a story here to be told, and perhaps you would be the person who would like to try to tell it. This is a Trail of the Green Man. This massive resource will be made available in the coming days. I hope you enjoyed the video. It's nearly 40 minutes long. Too long, to be honest. But it's been a long time. It's been over a decade to collect all this. Get the help from people to actually put it together. People offering their time to collect all the examples, to document them into a spreadsheet, to go through them and correct all the information, to keep the spreadsheets up to date with all the dying links, somebody to help actually create the database, somebody to input all the information into the database. If you want to help, come along, join us at the Discord. I would appreciate the help. We are going to try to contact some researchers, and we'll see how successful we are with that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. It's been a pleasure.